feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish pond in the shrimp tank. When you take a swim, only option is to win. In the murky water, not a thought of giving in. I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank. When it take a swim, only option is to win. In the murky water, not a thought of giving in. Welcome to the shrimp tank. Want to put it all together, this is big things. Doing big things, chasing big dreams. Yeah, it's all real, this life's all that it seems. All the chicks scream, all the dudes yell. This is just what I do and I do it well. With the flow fresher than the new shoe smell. Going through hell, but homie, keep going. You know the saying, you can reap what you sow in. So I don't chase girls, I just chase dreams. Play the same game, but we ain't in the same league. Running a campaign, Roadie 2016. Like a phone to die, putting me in charge. I'm a general, from the front, I'ma lead the charge. Like a federal, fell on my lap never. Going hard as ever.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, powered by Celsius Beverage. If this is your first time tuning in, catch all these amazing episodes up on our website, theshrimptankpodcast.com, and of course on your favorite podcast apps. Every week we come to you with the best and brightest entrepreneurs from South Florida, really finding the do's and don'ts running a business. This is the podcast that collaborates with the FEU Adams Center for Entrepreneurship, where street smarts and book smarts collide. I'm joined by my co-host. He's back in the studio. He's feeling a little healthier today. Dr. Kevin Cox. We had our old co-host, Dr. Roland Kidwell. He's getting excited to get back in here, Kevin. Be careful.
I know.
He wants to take it back over.
Unbelievable. They let Dr. Kidwell back into the show, but I am back, and there's a lot of exciting things going on right now at FAU. Last week, we kicked off the Veterans Florida Entrepreneurship Program. We also kicked off our Entrepreneurship Boot Camp program. So we have a lot of great educational programs for entrepreneurs going on right now. We just decided our finalists for our big annual business pitch competition. So I would encourage everybody to save the dates. The competition is on March 27th. But all the fun's on March 28th, where we're going to have a massive event, Innovate FAU at 5:30 at Tech Runway. It should be a really great event, and be sure to attend. And if you're interested in being more involved or becoming a sponsor for that event, reach out to me directly. I'm glad to have those conversations at any time.
So who is Innovate for? Explain in more detail.
Well,
like, is it for brands like Owl, for example? I could have a booth set up, and I could tell everyone about this cool technology, right? Tell us.
Yeah, I mean, for the right price, you can have whatever you want. This is going to be a celebration and award ceremony, right? So our business pitch competition this year has a student track, of course, we always do, has a veterans track, has a Spanish language track, has an A.D. Henderson middle school track. So, and we also have the Tech Runway pitch competition track. So all these different pitch competitions going on simultaneously. What better way to celebrate all the different types and forms of innovation and businesses starting at FAU than have a big party and announce all the winners and give away some money.
Okay. Well, I think everyone likes money, so this is exciting.
Yeah, I do too. It's a good deal for all involved, and come out and celebrate and meet the future businesses of Tech Runway. And speaking of that, you know, a few years ago, I had a legendary, perhaps infamous student in my class who we're lucky enough to have on the show today, recently announced and named Forbes 30 under 30, the co-founder of StrawFish, Kyle Lansing. Welcome, Kyle.
Beautiful introduction. Thank you.
That's why I let him do it. I know
right?
He would get it way better than I would.
Absolutely. Yeah, spent quite a few years in your classroom, so that was a fun one.
Yeah, so this segment of the show, what we like to do is find out about your entrepreneurial origin story, right? How did we end up here where we are today? Forbes 30 under 30, straws, silverware, all sorts of supplies. How did we get here? You were in my class just a few years ago.
Yeah, definitely. So I graduated in May of 2020 from FAU, which was a spectacular time to graduate. Right?
It's not a bad time to get out.
Yeah, it was. No one knew what was going on, and it's kind of a free for all.
I'm about to say you were fortunate. You know, a lot of people didn't get to go to school. They had to do their first 2 semesters at home.
Yeah, that was
perfect time. Even though there's some bad things entering the economy, right? Yeah. That is a positive on that end.
Yeah, but really kind of all started my first business I had. I was 15, and I started a wooden rose company where I sold wooden roses to 7-Elevens on the eastern coast of Florida. And I bought them online and for 10 cents and sold them to 7-Elevens for $1, and they turned around and flipped them for $2. And I had to stop that because I couldn't drive yet. My mom told me that you got to stop because I can't keep driving you up and down the coast of Florida every weekend to deliver roses.
Yeah.
Is there a hot market for wooden roses? I mean, it's Valentine's Day today.
Yeah, I mean, that's
explain a little bit more.
The thing that we saw was that in 7-Elevens, they have flowers like right next to the cash register. There's a quick little grab and go thing. The problem is they were expensive and they died. So it was like, if you could just not have it die, how does that happen? And then I ran across wooden roses somewhere and looked online and bought them and ended up meeting the guy who ran the 7-Elevens from like Vero Beach to Daytona Beach. And he was like, put them in the stores and deliver them. And that was that. So that was the first. That was the
most
first.
Men, we give flowers on days like Valentine's Day, but we always get upset that a week later they're gone. So it completely makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was the first business. And I had, stuff around the neighborhood when I was a kid of doing lawn care and little things like that. So I always had my hand in entrepreneurship in general. And after that, I went to school, was golfing in college, and decided that pro golf wasn't going to be for me. And I didn't want to go down that route. And business was a passion of mine. So also while I was at FAU, I started a private security company that specialized in fraternity security because no one understood what they wanted on their companies, and did that in one of Kevin's classes, and also started StrawFish and through that process, and got to a point where I had to decide between both of them, and had some mentors of mine said if I could go back and do it again, I would be out of private security and I would go do the products. And so I dove headfirst into this in January of 2019, and then COVID hit and it was just kind of a big reset. We were paper straw company before COVID, and we made one that didn't fall apart, and we sold ad space on it and gave it away for free. And then COVID put a firm stop to that. Just our supply chain was coming out of China. And then from there, we met up with a team in Mexico over COVID of really diving into material tech and what the biodegradable market was going to look like in disposables, and have what we have now, which is 100% biodegradable alternative.
So I got to ask, did Kevin influence you to go down that path, right? You were in between two brands and you were in his class. And of course he teaches a lot about business plans and looking into the future, what is simple, what is scalable, right? Lots of times he talks about addressable market size, right? So, it's a complete different industry that you were thinking about. So did he have some influence on that?
He led me to the right questions to ask the right people is what it came down to. So when I asked my mentor who owns a private security company, and he was telling me about his friends that do as well, and the challenges that I would face. I'm not ex-military. I'm not ex-police officers. And if it's 1-to-1 on a paper and it's my company versus someone else's, I don't have that military background, which is generally what they would choose. So there was going to be, it's not that I couldn't do it. It was just going to be a little bit more challenging than potentially others. So it led to the right questions being asked, which was good.
Yeah, that's a good point, is being not just the opportunity, but we in the academic research refer to entrepreneurship sometimes as the person or the individual opportunity nexus, right? So the private security might have been the right choice for someone else, but for you in your instance, and luckily it was a timely and a good market as well. That does make a lot of sense, and it sounds like some good advice, because not only having that background and reputation, but also the network and the contracts. For getting some of those larger state and federal contracts, it's a lot easier if being like, and I happen to have been a 3rd-star general, and I know this guy, and we're going to apply and bid on that contract. Give us a nod, and there's some of that which you wouldn't necessarily be able to easily get in on, right?
And the same vein on that is that some of them actually required you to be ex-military or ex-police officer and have someone who was a majority shareholder to be that person. So
and I don't really see you successfully getting certified or classified as either a police officer or a military member. I just don't see that as a path forward for you.
Definitely not. So that was one of the things we did, is I didn't perform any of the security, but I hired the people that did, and they were a lot bigger and a lot scarier than I was.
So let's touch on the first vision, right? Because when I met you in 2020, you were sitting at the shrimp tank. I remember you coming in and we were chatting. You came to our office And I remember feeling the straw. I'm like, this is perfect timing, right? There was a law that passed in South Florida, and a lot of our past guests, like Oceans 234, came on the show, and we had a whole talk about the straws, right? And a lot of people were like, we hate these damn straws, right? And I remember Von Dugan came on the show, and we talked about it then, and it was like the perfect timing. You guys came out, and the name made perfect sense, StrawFish, right? And you guys really got traction. You got all the way up to Starbucks. I remember you're like, we're talking to Starbucks, and I'm like, slow down, like they're this big, and you're a brand new company. Like, if you get Starbucks as an account, you will have logistic issues, right? And I remember you telling us about the vendor that you were partnering with and how they had a patent on the product. So just explain kind of the failure, right? Because it's so important to share that failure and how quickly you executed changing the brand and getting to where you are now. And looking back, it was the best freaking decision you ever made.
For sure.
And so often in the moment, you're like, this is the worst. Like, I'm so unlucky and I'm so unfortunate. But now you're so happy that you were.
No, for sure. So really it's kind of a multitude of points there. The one big one was when we were selling advertising on them, and people don't want to put their brand on something that's cheap or that doesn't work. And so we knew we had to design, we're like, there's got to be a way to make a paper straw not fall apart. And there is, it just costs a lot of money. So we actually flew to China, vetted out the manufacturing out there, and landed on a design and a manufacturer for it. And we were scaling quite quickly and had some really good contacts at some really good accounts, because it was more of an advertising deal than selling to your hotels or anything like that. So we were having conversations with some really big advertisers and some really big corporations that were wanting to do co-branding. And then that was coming to fruition in February of 2020. Obviously in March, the world shut down and they cut $5 million a week in spending and then went on to just shut everything down. So it was a setback, to say the least. So it was like, okay, our business isn't running. Our customers aren't even open to be able to use the straw.
Yeah.
So now what do we do? And paper, no matter what, it was great because we were giving away paper for free. But to try to sell a paper straw, no matter how good it was, every time you say paper straw, it just says, people just have this connotation with it that it's a paper straw. I don't like it. Perfect. So we knew that there was going to be new material technology coming out, and that's where we started looking around into different material substrates, PLAs, PHAs, and really what the end life cycle of those is, what it does, and how to properly dispose of it. And from there, we went to and linked up with the team down in Mexico that was developing certain material technology in this vein. And the one thing, we knew what the market wanted and what it needed, and we knew it needed to perform. We knew it needed to be cost effective in order to buy, and then it needed to fulfill its life cycle in a natural way, in an easy way.
So why the co-branding aspect, right? Straws have been around forever, right? Most places just want the cheapest thing possible that works great, but you had a different model, right? You went against the grain and said, we want to, for example, put Celsius beverage in your cocktail because you love Celsius anyway. And now Celsius obviously, gets, 10,000 straws given out at a particular restaurant on the waterfront, right? And everyone's looking down, and what do? They go on their iPhone, and they're like, oh, let me search Celsius. Let me follow Celsius, right? But, other brands were not doing that. So like what, or maybe they were, I don't even know. Like, what was your competition like? Like, why the co-branding aspect?
The co-branding has been around for ages. I mean, you see it on diner placemats and coasters and things like that, but no one had ever done it on a straw. And the reason of the co-branding and it was finding a way to fund the expensive straw and getting something that, okay, if it's more expensive than other paper straws, that's going to be a hard sell. But if I walk up to someone and I say, hey, it's not going to fall apart and it's going to be free, and we're just going to give it to you.
Gotcha.
It was a much better reaction. And restaurants will take most anything that's free. So that was kind of where that went. And hopefully we can get back to that model, because I think there's some success that's going to be had there. We're working on laser engraving on straws, but trying to scale that production wise is very difficult, because it needs to be accurate and precise and things like that. But it's definitely a model that's been around, and it was just applying it to something different.
So let's fast forward to today. Tell us about your products. How are they differentiated from other offerings? I'm imagining other people have kind of tried different materials to get into the space. We're still going through a lot of straws. Nobody likes paper, and you go beyond straws now, right? So
Correct.
silverware and other alternatives. Tell us about the product line, the benefits, differentiation. Sell us, Kyle.
Yeah.
Sell us.
The biggest differentiator for us is the biodegradable versus compostable. So compostability, it's the key word that everyone hears. Everyone's all compostable, but how those products actually get composted and reach their end of life cycle is very difficult. You have to collect them, clean them, sort them, ship them, hope that they're not contaminated, hope that someone else is doing their job at the industrial compost facility, hope that that facility runs the right length of time for it to actually reach the end of life cycle. And then restaurants just simply aren't doing that. Consumers aren't doing that.
Yeah. One person leaves the cap on their orange juice bottle
Correct.
and doesn't rinse it out, and the whole load is
Correct.
contaminated.
Exactly. And the same vein goes for composting. And that's where in recycling, we're at an all-time low of under 4% now of plastic recycling. And if we can't get that right, which has been around for a while, to build a completely new infrastructure and to go down that route is a massive challenge. So that's where part of the design and the guide was to go, okay, it needs to degrade and biodegrade in natural conditions that exist naturally, and also put it into the hands of people that they already know how to throw stuff away. We don't have to teach them anything new. And really you could take it and just throw it in the garbage, and 18 months or less, it will biodegrade in landfills.
Wow, that's great. That's wonderful. People don't know this, but that's great for people like Jason. When he finishes these fancy things he gets at Starbucks, he calls them coffees, but they're like milkshakes.
Sugar shakes.
And as soon as he finishes one, wherever he's driving down the road, he just whips it out the window. So in this case,
don't do that. Absolutely not.
Your straws.
Wait, you're not allowed to do that?
Please do not.
And you're saying your straws would just biodegrade there right on the street where Jason.
And I'm good.
sells it.
See that?
So that is a
the
common
world.
misconception. So there is no, as you would call it, side of the road test. Every single side of the road and every foot is a different biome that could actually break it down. So I don't think there will ever be a side of the road test because every single one is different. Our test is 18 months or under, because in every landfill condition is different. The ones in Arizona are different than the ones in Florida, are different than the ones in Alaska. And that's a common misconception, is people ask, oh, what if it ends up on the side of the road? We're confident it will biodegrade in a time period I don't know. It's
within a landfill environment.
Yes.
We're talking about 18 months or less.
Correct.
Which is reasonable and a net gain.
Right.
All right. So tell us about the sustainability on the production side, right? Is that part also pretty clean and sustainable? I know in some instances when I see some environmental studies, a new version of this will come out, or somebody will do an analysis of EVs and be like, well, actually, it turns out what it took to make this and construct this, and then there's these chemicals in the battery. Like, no, that's not any better.
Right.
Is that hold true in the straw and flatware space? Or can we produce them pretty clean?
We can produce them pretty clean. What we have right now in the manufacturing process is it uses traditional plastic machines with some tweaks to it so it utilizes the same energy, and it's really the environmental aspects or the energy, which, we'd love to get away from of getting it from solar or getting it from anything like that. That comes with time and investments. So eventually we'll get into that. We just recently took over the manufacturing facility and own that down in Mexico is where we produce everything. And then currently we're going to be running a LCA life cycle assessment on the actual net carbon reduction of our products. We use seashells as one of the base of the product that we clean up off the Baja Peninsula. So we're going to be running an LCA, and we're fairly confident in it having a net good impact versus the other ones that you see that, like you said, the electric cars that are, hey, it's got to go 6 places around the world and on this ship and that ship, and it's not all sustainable all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I want to dive into marketing for a moment and your team. Right, in 4 years, you've amassed a substantial sized team, right? And with growth comes problem with hiring, right, and laying off people. And lots of new entrepreneurs really get going and think it's going to be easy, and they realize, wow, hiring people, is a whole separate talent,
Yep.
right? And leadership is a whole separate talent, and you've pulled it off, right? You made it on 30 under 30 list, and you really scale. So give us an approximate amount of employees that you currently have. Are they outsourced? Are they local? And tell us about, like, how do you market? Because all these businesses fail because it's a great concept, but they can't market it, right? And you guys have accomplished the marketing side.
Yeah. So employees, most of them are down actually in Mexico at our factory down there. We have 3 stateside and part-time here. And the rest of them are actually down in Mexico at the facility there. So a big thing that we've done and what we try to do is stay as lean as possible for as long as possible. And really, especially on the state side of outsourcing accounting services, outsourcing logistics, and having that set up where we have I have a 3PL company that works and does all the logistics for us, and we get to utilize their massive team for what is a little bit of a markup. It would cost me a lot more to have my own logistics team and do it myself. So utilizing the right people and finding the right partners and doing that is key. But also not being afraid to let go quickly and partners. And we're going to make mistakes in hiring, and just recently had a quality manager at the factory that we thought was really, really qualified, and turns out it doesn't translate across industries as well as we thought, and got her out and have someone else in. And it's tough, but it's not a super fun thing to do, but it's something that has to be done.
Yeah, it's never easy.
Part of it.
And what about on the marketing side, right? You did all this, and now you got to get it to brands. Of course, you got to get out there, one restaurant at a time or one company at a time. So what was your secret to marketing?
So a lot of it, we don't do any like traditional like Instagram marketing or Facebook or any of that. Our people that we target is a very specific set of people, which is purchasers or food and beverage managers at these specific companies. So a lot of it became word of mouth, being able to provide the services we say we're going to provide to people, because the food service industry is very, very big, but very small. And everybody knows everybody and has worked at this company or that company, and they talk and they go, where did you get this? How did you do this? How is it working with their team? And so those are the things that we wanted to make sure we could fulfill on those promises first.
Yeah.
And then really getting our big push was getting Royal Caribbean a couple years ago and having our name on every single one of their ships across the world, which is really cool. So we get a lot of reach outs on our website of going, oh my gosh, this is awesome.
Cool.
And really just pushing education on the website and directing people there whenever we do it. But also trade shows are a big thing for us. There's a show in Chicago every year called the National Restaurant Association show. It's the largest food show in the world. And we're there every year, and there's about 110,000 attendees, about 10,000 exhibitors, and anybody in any food service space is at that show.
Yeah. And let me just add one thing too, Kyle's not here to, pump himself up or anything. He's a humble guy relatively. But I'll add, he's a great salesperson. Kyle's aggressive and he's good at sales. Not overly aggressive, but he follows through, he follows up, and he's not afraid to go and knock on doors and get them open. You know what I mean? Where it's like, not everybody is necessarily, well, I don't know if they'd be the right fit. Like, no, he's going to go ask, he's going to explain the product, he's going to have a conversation, he's going to follow up. And if they agree to something, he's going to make sure they deliver. That's something I noticed about him very early on. He's definitely a go-getter and ready to make some sales.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the best quotes I just got told the other day actually is, you can't get told no if you don't ask.
It's true.
So that's where I'm going to try to live by that.
Yeah. And I'll bring up the point that you don't focus on social media. I feel like almost every new brand enters the market and thinks they have to do it all. They got to do TikTok. They got to do Instagram. They got to do LinkedIn. Now they got to do Threads, right? And they get so sucked into making content, and it's the same engagement over and over again. And then it leads to failure. And then they try Facebook ads, and then that leads to the failure.
Yeah. And it goes back to business strategy and business model, right? And why all the students are in here listening today, right? When's the last time any of you thought about where the hell your straw came from? No, it's just in your it's in your drink on your cruise ship in the Royal Caribbean, right? Like, it works. It has a hole in the middle. It reaches the bottom of the cup. Like, no one cares. So you don't really need to be consumer facing and getting people excited about your straws. you don't get to make the decision about what kind of straws Royal Caribbean has or Starbucks has. They are just there. So from a business strategy and business model perspective, there's no point in all that pomp and circumstance and having fun with straws on TikTok. Like, it doesn't matter. That's not going to get you sales. Purchasers who make those decisions decide on the straws and make massive purchases, and they have a million other purchases to make. They need a good product, needs to be delivered on time.
Yep. And that's having our name on the ships was definitely, that's our marketing. And that's where we get a lot of the purchasers and those type of people. They take cruises to, and they go on it. And if that's been a hot topic on their mind, they go, wow, this one works. Royal Caribbean uses it. It's awesome. And then next thing you know, we get a reach out, which is pretty fantastic.
Yes. Perfect timing for a commercial break, because it's all about relationships and relationships mattering. And that's how you built this entire business, not on social media, but one relationship at a time. And that's all about the Owl app, which we're about to hear from.
Join the fastest growing community of professionals on the internet with Owl. Access new networks and otherwise unreachable professional contacts through the one-on-one call feature on the app. Scroll through the list of available professionals and join them for a quick call to build rich connections, expand invaluable relationships, and to broaden your professional landscape without needing lofty referrals. Owl, we bring vetted pros to your doorstep 24/7 on demand. Join our community by signing up at owl.com today.
He froze.
Welcome back to the Boca Raton Shrimp Tank here at FAU's Adams Center for Entrepreneurship. This segment might be called What's Hot, or whatever we determine it is, but I'm confident the students have assured me today that they have a lot of good ideas and exciting ideas for the show. So don't disappoint with some bunch of lame questions. Let's kick things off with Henry. What do you got?
Good afternoon, Kyle. My name is Henry. I appreciate taking time out of your day to give us some of your experience in the business world. My question to you is, early on, I understand that you need to kind of have your finances set up in a certain way because there's some areas you got to put more money into. Right now, where you're at, how do you allocate a lot of your funds? Like, are you doing a lot of R&D still, or it's just like marketing, or where's your focus on, and where are you putting a lot of your effort in right now at this moment?
Yeah, pretty much all of our money is allocated towards delivering on the promises and making inventory commitments that we have, and keeping enough there to keep our customers happy. Because if we lose them and we can't deliver to them, we don't really have anything. That's how we gained a lot of businesses, because other companies couldn't deliver or was experiencing delays. So right now, that's pretty much where all of our reinvestments are going back in and expanding the factory. But we are raising money right now to allocate towards marketing, to allocate towards softwares being put in place, efficiencies, automations, things like that. So that is something that it's finding what's going to benefit you the most in kind of the short term. And right now, that's our biggest thing, is keeping up with our inventory and making sure that we can actually deliver.
Good question. Ryan, what do you got?
Hey, I just wanted to know a little bit about like the costs of the straws for you guys and the margins you sell it for. Like, what's that kind of looking like? Where are you making most of your revenue?
Here we go. A numbers break.
Yeah, right.
Live on the pod. Look out.
Yeah. So traditional plastic straws can run from like a half cent to a penny in the sale wise. Ours will range anywhere from a penny to 2, and other eco options can go all the way up to 12 cents. We've seen with like edible straws and crazy things like that. We're trying to get down as cost effective as we can, without putting ourselves in a position where we can't reinvest back in the company. So as we continue to scale, we pass those cost savings along to the customers. So that way it just kind of benefits everybody, but we have got to get to scale first. Margins on straws it's percentage wise is high, dollar wise is not, because straws are a penny or 2. It's why we're branching into getting into cups. We've done cutlery now, and then we're going to get into cups, to go containers, things like that, of things that cost, instead of a penny or 2, they cost 10 to 20 cents, 20 to 50 cents. And so those revenues will come in a lot higher. We'll have a little bit more room to play with and to reinvest that.
Are you messing with my Starbucks cup? What's going to happen?
I hope so.
Is it going away?
That'd be really cool. Starbucks, if you're
Kevin
listening,
gets really upset every week. I have a bunch of those.
Yeah, that's a great question. And another point we're pointing out, I get a lot of students who, want to try to adopt like a cost leadership strategy, right? Well, we'll just cut cut them down on cost and then enter the market. Well, what about the companies that are already at scale? So they're selling 1 billion units of straws. Well, you're not going to be able to produce each unit cheaper than them. So oftentimes, as a new entry, you're better off entering the market space as a differentiator, where you say, hey, I know my straws aren't the cheapest, but they're not terrible for the environment, and they're going to last for dozens of years, or if not forever, because they're non-biodegradable plastic. And sometimes that can be enough where it makes the difference and can drive sales, whereas you just can't compete until you get to that scale. And we're hopeful that you get there, and then it becomes a no-brainer, right? If the costs are equivalent, it's like, well, I'll go with the one that doesn't destroy the earth. Like, why not? Yeah. All right.
Then Kyle, real quick, why have your competitors not try to scoop you up? Or they probably have, right? If you have a brand that's doing billions of straws out there, and I don't know if there is one that is doing that, but I would just assume they're like, okay, here's competition, kind of like what we see with Coke and Pepsi all the time, right? You can't get on the shelves, right? They own the market, right? So has that occurred?
Not as much, because there's the purchasers who are in charge of putting things on the shelves are starting to see the ebb and flow of the different materials that are coming on the market. Back in 2019, 2018, with the turtle video that came out, the paper straw was the first and best thing that hit the market. And that was the best alternative at the time. And so then it ebbed and went to PLAs, and then got into PHAs. And now those have been on the market for a bit. There's certain things that are, pros and cons with each of those. And so they're starting to open their eyes a little bit to other alternatives, where you've got to stay up with the market and be the next thing. And that's really what's taking the market right now, which is awesome.
Cool.
What's your success in selling to solo restaurants versus bigger corporations and chains like Royal Caribbean?
Yeah, so at first we were definitely restaurant to restaurant. When we first started the company in 2019, just to see if the idea would even be feasible with paper straws and giving them away. We walked into pretty much every restaurant from West Palm all the way to Fort Lauderdale, and it was like, if we were able to make a straw that didn't fall apart and give it away for free to you, would you take it? And everyone was like, absolutely, like that'd be awesome. So that's how we started there. And then when we got our new material, it was okay, we have friends or people in the community that have restaurants that, hey, we can sell to them. We can sell literally out of a storage unit, and it started out of our house, and then went to the storage unit, and then went to a warehouse, and then it scaled up that way. So we definitely started at the roots, and we're not really going to get away from it, because there's still some local people that we still supply, because we made that commitment to them, and we're going to continue doing it no matter how big we get. But they're definitely of local people that we started on the small scale. But the thing with straws is that doing one case to a restaurant that does one order a month of one case isn't going to keep a business open. So we have to balance between going after those one-off restaurants and the massive chains, which is kind of where that 10 to 25 unit chain lies. Flanagan's is one of them. That's a local one around here that we've been supplying for a while. And those are really around the country what we want to target, because if we get 10, 25 unit chains, it's the same as one 250 unit chain, and potentially the sales cycle could be a lot less. And then if one drops off, we're not reliant on the one massive revenue, and it's not gonna kill us and sink us.
Yeah, sounds like a great strategy. Well, let's round out this segment with a great question from Ruben. I know he's got something good he's been dying to ask.
Well, going back to the trade shows that you went to, since with this product specifically, you can make more money by selling in bulk to stores. Could you kind of walk us through that process that took you from not selling to individuals, but rather to larger, like food or restaurant markets?
Yeah. So the trade shows, it's just to showcase your product. A lot of purchasers go there to see the new stuff and feel it and put it in their hands. So that's why that's such a big push for us. It was really, especially in the straw market, it's putting the product in front of them and letting them test it out and letting the product kind of speak for itself and perform as it would. That was a big one. And Royal Caribbean was our first major publicly traded partner that came on board about 2.5 years ago now, which was fantastic. So that was a big thing of, okay, we can do it. We can deliver to them. We can do things on time. We didn't miss an order with them in the 2 years that we were delivering ourselves, and still haven't missed an order to this day with our partner distributors. So that's a really good thing. And that reputation will kind of follow you. If we couldn't supply things, then it would get around pretty quickly. And it's like, oh, well, you don't have any capacity. So that was something that was a different, and it's just getting in touch. It's the same person that manages the restaurant or makes a decision for the single restaurant. It's just a different person in a different position at a corporation, and it's getting in touch with those people. And that's where relationships come in. And relationships are absolutely the most valuable thing. And there's people who have had relationships with some of these people that we do sales with that is longer than I've been alive. And they've known them for 35 years and been to their kids' weddings. And it's those that we partner with, people that are like-minded like that have that ability to do that.
Another perfect closing to that segment about how important relationships are. And if you want to call Kyle on the Owl app, it will be available next week. So anybody listening in this audience or students here, just call him, right? Build a relationship with him. And then as you're scaling your business, right, and you run into something, Kyle probably has the answer. He's been through a lot of ups and downs. So have our other entrepreneurs. And build an opportunity. Don't look at it as like, well, there's no point of calling. I can't make money off this individual right now. And I feel like so often people do that. It's like, no, you know, plant the seeds today. And sometimes it sprouts 10 years later, like you were just discussing with all these businesses. They know everybody and it's word of mouth. And I think too often people are just jumping to the next on social media, and they're missing out on the bigger opportunity. So we're going to take a quick commercial break here from our sponsor, and then we'll be back with Plead the Fifth.
Step into our state-of-the-art innovation lab and create your digital future. Oz uses cutting-edge technology and 22 years of industry knowledge to enhance customer experience through digital innovation in a variety of expertise. Oz is a leading global consulting company whose services and solutions are trusted by startup, midsize, and even Fortune 500 companies. Get to know more about Oz's Salus, a mobile solution bringing us back to max capacity, and their latest solution, Rainmaker, saving insurance companies years of work. To learn more about Oz and their exciting technologies, visit followoz.com. That's FOLLOWOZ.com.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Shrimp Tank. As a reminder, we go live every single week now, right around 1 p.m. on Facebook, on Instagram. So if you want to watch this video live, or you're just catching the audio version, go over to one of those feeds and you could watch the entire episode. So in this segment, Kyle, it's called Plead the Fifth. You can't plead the fifth more than one time. If you plead the fifth 2 times, you're going to owe Kevin, a year's worth of Starbucks coffee. Is that a deal? Is that it? And
Sure.
Okay, Kevin, he agreed. We got a big opportunity on the line for you, even though he thinks it's a cup of sugar. Some of us like that caffeine, so we could do these podcasts week in and week out. Okay, so I'm going to jump into what is the hardest thing working with your other co-founder, right? We didn't talk about that on the show today. Often, a lot of businesses struggle that are co-founded by 2 people. They have different views. Like you had a big shift during COVID. There could have been big arguments. No, let's stay in our lane. Let's shift directions. Tell us about the hardest thing having a co-founder.
Yeah. So we actually have 3. So there's 3 of us. Yeah. There's
3.
Yep. 3 founders. What's good is that it took a little bit of a learning curve, but we were able to not step on each other's toes. It took us a little bit to find that lane where we're not double working or butting heads. And, I've got my one business partner, Tomer, is a wizard with numbers, and that's his lane, and it's what he's very good at. So it's staying in my lane there. And then Aaron handles a lot of the day-to-day sales operations, and I handle pretty much everything else. So that was a big thing. And the most difficult thing is sometimes you get on each other's nerves when you're around someone that much. And there is bickering and fighting and things like that. But we all know at the end of the day, it's for the best of the company and what we're trying to do and what we're trying to grow. And it'll all be worth it one day.
That's normal.
Yep.
As long as you could fight and then go grab a beer afterwards.
Correct.
That's what counts. I have a bunch of business partners. One of my business, the financial services, and it's same thing has always happened. Yep. There's always fights, but as long as you could come to a mutual agreement, everyone usually feels like they're on the losing side somehow. It's funny when arguments happen, but you all just like, whatever, let's just go grab a beer.
Yep.
And then you go on a trip and you have some fun. And
Correct.
You put it behind you.
Exactly.
You can't take everything, always too serious when you have business partners, of course.
Yep.
All right. So my first business involved a fair amount of international shipping and logistics, some stuff that we screwed up or no fault of our own. We had some issues. I feel like almost everybody does. There's another founder locally who had all his inventory for a new company sitting on a freighter just outside the port in California when all the port workers went on strike like 5 years ago, and it was just sitting there, and he was just launched, but then had no inventory. Even went as far as looking into renting a helicopter and trying to go get it off of the boat himself. So what has been your biggest problem or your biggest loss or issue with shipping and logistics or fulfillment? Have you ever lost a whole, box full of straws or anything wild like that?
Actually, no. We've been extraordinarily lucky with logistics and the shipping. Our biggest delay that we've ever had was probably, I think it was about 2 years ago when Texas froze over in a once in 100-year event, and it shut down the Laredo border for a week, which was great. But that's the worst that's happened.
Oh, you've been pretty much unscathed, Len, so far.
It's been
That's
great.
not bad. Yeah,
no, it's been awesome. I've heard the horror stories on the ocean. We try to stay off the ocean if we can, and shipping. So in terms of getting it to the States, so we're pretty much land based. It's a little bit more expensive, but to be able to control it within days and not have something just sitting out there because someone won't unload it or can't unload it or the ship's not even docked, we don't deal with that.
Yeah, at ports and on the ocean, weird things happen and things get misplaced and all sorts of things happen. So I think that's a savvy logistical move on your end as well.
Yep, it
What
was
else
done
you got?
intentionally.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to leave one for the end because I know I'm going to get them. But to start out with the Forbes 30 under 30.
Yeah.
Right. Tell us, what was the most disappointing thing? I know lots of times we all achieve to be on that list, and then all of a sudden, like, things aren't as true as we believe. There's a lot of pay to play moments in there, right? To be involved once you get on that list. But tell us, what was the most disappointing thing?
The most disappointing thing was I had to go to New York in the cold for the party.
That's not that bad.
It wasn't that bad, but I'm born and raised in Florida, so I don't do the cold very well.
Yeah, I'm with Kyle. That sounds terrible.
It was right before Christmas time, so it was absolutely slam packed, and it was freezing, and it was a quick little trip in and trip out. Other than that, they've been great. They've been great to work with.
What's the best thing then?
Best thing's being on the list. I mean, the launch party they threw was pretty cool, and some of the people that are beside us on the list are some of the biggest names in the world, and that's definitely a cool thing to be a part of. It's been a dream of mine for as long as I can remember to make that list. So it was definitely fun.
Congrats.
All right, so let me ask some questions about some things that I happen to know. So I know you're moving towards another fundraising round at the current moment, and I also know, given the many roles that I have in different entities, that the market for VC and angel funding has been brutal, right? So for those who don't know this, it's very much like the public markets, but the private sector early stage investment market also fluctuates. It goes up and it goes down. And in 2021 and 22, it was very popular. A lot of money flooding into the space. So more investors than startup companies. That drove valuations through the roof. It was a celebratory time for founders, champagne, cocaine, all the sayings you might hear, valuations through the roof and easy to raise money. Oh, since 2023, it's been cut in half and fundraising is hard. So tell us a little bit about how that fundraising is going so far and what you're hoping to do.
Yeah, fundraising is tough. Real tough. It's something that we started it at the most inopportune time, unbeknownst to us, which was right before the holidays, which going back probably wouldn't have done that, but
interesting.
Live and you learn.
There's a published research paper by Dr. Kevin Cox that says the seasonality of angel and VC investing and analysis, and what my findings suggest is angels and VCs, they like to go on vacation over the winter and most of the summer, so those are not the best times. You're right.
Yeah, probably should have read that before you dove into this, but yeah, that's been a challenge. And then it's also finding the perfect type of investor that invests into what we do. And then getting connected to those people has been a challenge. We're in a very specific industry, and a lot of, if we were a tech company, it might be a little bit easier, but because we're in maybe. I mean, I don't know, but
Yeah.
we're still trucking along and getting closer, which is great. So, and just trying to connect to as many people. But yeah.
All right.
Okay. Well, being that you were part of Kevin Cox's classes, I can't not ask a question about one of these. But I hope you plead the fifth, so you don't have to air out Kevin's.
If you don't get him with
dirty
this one, I
laundry.
got another one. So go
so
ahead.
you don't air out his dirty laundry over here. But when you look back at Kevin's class, right, he teaches entrepreneurship. A lot of entrepreneurs disagree with the things that they hear in classrooms.
Yeah.
So looking back, what is one thing that you just right now are passionate that you would completely disagree with what he taught you? Or plead the fifth.
Oof.
You can say those words. If you don't,
or you could just say,
I don't know if I disagreed with. I don't know if I
Yeah.
disagree with too much because
you agree with it all.
and how
on.
I'm pretty vague in class.
Yeah,
so
that was
it's easy.
Did you even go to class? Let's start there.
well that
You didn't go to class.
questionable. It was an interesting experience because how he ran the class. It was very different. It wasn't textbooks. Generally, the I guess academic entrepreneurship, if you will, in that thing is usually textbook and that like that. And he just didn't run the class like that, which is why I was very lucky to get in the first one, and it's why I took a second one and a third one, and did the last pretty much 2 years of my college in his class at least once a semester. So that was it was actually pretty good. And it wasn't a lot that he made me ask the right questions, which was interesting.
It was actually pretty good. All right. I will take that endorsement
That
right
is a compliment,
there.
Kevin.
All right. Let's get him to plead the fifth
Yeah.
at least once, and then we'll end the show. Who's your least favorite professor at FAU?
Poof, yeah, plead the fifth on that one. Yeah. That's gotta
There you
plead
go.
the fifth.
See
Yep.
me after the show if you want the answer.
And they're probably still working here then if you plead the fifth.
Plead the fifth.
Right? If they weren't, it's not a big deal.
Plead the fifth.
Okay. Well, we won't go for it. I was gonna go below the belt.
No, I think it's been a great
restaurant,
show
with
with
a
a
restaurant
great
that he does not
alumni.
like in town. But we'll stay away from that because might be a past client, right? So, well, Kyle, thanks for joining us on the Shrimp Tank today.
Absolutely.
For our audience listening, if they want to get in touch with you, of course, they call you on Al. But what are their routes? Are you on social media? And share with our audience your website.
Yep, we're on Instagram, LinkedIn, strawfish.co. Follow us there. Our main email that goes to our batch inbox is info@strawfish.co, and our website is www.strawfish.co. So if go on any there, we got contact pages. We're pretty accessible people, and do reach back to everyone.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining us here on the Shrimp Tank. Everybody listening, we'll be back around 1 p.m. live next Wednesday. Take care.
See you Friday.
Feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank. When it take a